All right, this is Ben Colby, Teen Librarian, with the Level 2 video for making a musical instrument with your microbit. To review here in part 1, we created a variable to control the play mode. We created a variable to control the tempo. We set the initial tempo. When we press the buttons or shake, we change the play mode or reset it back to 0. And then in our forever loop, we have an if statement running. If the play mode is 0 or less, then we run play mode 0, which is a function, and then so on for play mode 1 and 2 and 3. And I don't need to say if something happens for play mode 3 because, that's the only other thing. If these 3 things aren't happening, then I don't even need to check. I can just say it must be the last thing. So the 3 play modes here have different melodies, and then there's also a rest block for play mode 0. I'm going to keep the rest block in play mode 0. I'm just going to leave that one alone. But play mode 1, let's do this. I want to make a pulsing sound, so like on, off, on, off. And let's copy that. Let's actually do this twice. So I'm actually going to rest here. I'm going to make this a 16-beat function. Every time we go through one of these functions, it's 16 beats. And let's make it move faster too, because I just basically did halftime. So the nice thing now is because I only have one place to control the tempo, I just control it. I just change it. Oops. Let's make it much faster. Okay. Great. So let's think about sensors. Play mode 2 is where I'm gonna get rid of this melody. We're gonna use the light sensors. Oh, and by the way, here's a fun thing with the LED screen. We can plot a bar graph of something. Under the forever loop, outside of the if statement, I'm going to say plot a bar graph of the light level, which is something that I get in the input menu. The light level is measured by the actual LEDs on the screen. It's a two-way road. They can create light. They can also sense light and tell you how much light is shining on them. And I just know from using this, I just mouse over it, and it says the range goes from 0 dark to 255 bright. So let's say we want to create the graph up to 255, meaning that we would go all the way. And now if I drag this little sun up here, that's like your simulated light level, then it's going to change what is on the screen. A regular indoor light level would be like 50 to 70. So actually I'm going to turn up that the scale of this to say up to, 100. Up to 75. Right, so now under regular light conditions, we're only going up about halfway. Or we should anyway. Oh, because okay. So let's think about using the light to control the tone in play mode 2. I'm going to use that same block, light level. Well, what am I going to use? I'm going to generate a tone under the music menu. Play a tone for a certain number of beats. And I guess if I could just put the light level right in there. The problem is that those would be some very low notes. This is a number that's between 0 and 256. These, like a middle A is 440. So I think we need to go just a little higher than that. So I'm going to go into the math menu, grab one of these purple multiplication blocks, and say light level this time times 5 for one beat. And then not just one beat, but I actually want to repeat that 16 times. I want to do this for 16 beats. So I'm going to go to loops. I'm going to grab a repeat loop, and I want to repeat this 16 times. Let's test this out. So I've got nothing in mode 1. I'm beeping in mode 2, and then I get, or well, I guess that's mode 1. Now I'm in mode 2. I'm responding to the light. And it just went real quickly. So the light level times 5, what's the problem here? It should be repeating. Let me just stop and try again. So here I am in play mode 1, or play mode 0, now I'm in play mode 1, now I'm in play mode 2. Oh, much better. It just crashed the first time. Interesting. Okay, so I can actually play this instrument by changing the light, and you could use a flashlight. You could do any number of things to change the light level and control that. So I'm actually going to rename play mode 2 to light solo mode, or flashlight solo mode. And you can see it automatically changed it up here too in my function call. Very good. I'm going to change play mode 3 to call it tipping mode. We're going to use a sensor on this device called the accelerometer. I'm going to get rid of this melody. And let's see. The accelerometer is under input like all the sensors. And we're looking at this acceleration in the x direction. And if you look at the help menu, it'll tell you this is a number that goes from -1,000 if you tip everything to the left to +1,000 if you tip everything to the right. And you could also have other directions, but let's stick with x, tipping to the left and the right. Great, so we're going to do something very similar to this. I'm going to duplicate this repeat thing, and instead of the light level, I'm just going to, if I were to just do that, then it would be giving me some negative numbers, but you know, theoretically, at least some of the time, if I have positive numbers, I could be tipping it and making the tone go higher. But I want to do this a little differently, actually. I want to create a new variable. Right. And so we're going to start, I'm going to call it current tone. Okay, so set current tone. Anytime you have a variable, you want to put it in your start menu with an initial value. So I'm in the start menu. I'm going to set my current tone to something, and it doesn't matter. Something reasonable. I'll just say 400, something that we can hear. A frequency of 400 would be something like a G. And then we're going to use that variable later on. So the current tone is going to change under tipping mode. Great. Yeah, so we're going to change current tone by, and it'll be changing it by acceleration. If I left it alone like this, then I could be changing the tone by 1,000 or by -1,000, which means I'm changing it way, 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 way too fast, basically. So I'm just going to use this same purple block. It's the acceleration, and instead of, acceleration of x divided this time by a certain amount. So if I am tipped all the way to the right, that's a value of 1,000. And I would want to change the tone in that case by, I don't know, 20 or 30 frequency. So I'd have to divide by something. So I guess to get from 1,000 to 20, I would divide by 50. So I'm going to change the current tone by acceleration in the x direction divided by 50, not plus. Divided by 50. And then play tone for 1 beat, except we're not going to play middle C, we're going to play current tone for 1 beat. So that should work 16 times. I think this will work. Let's test it. Play mode 0. Play mode 1, I've got the beeps. Play mode 2, I'm controlled by the light. Play mode 3, I'm tipping. Hey. And it just froze on us again for some reason. But we get the idea. It's working great. I think I want it to change a little faster in tipping mode. So if I want it to change more, then I would divide this number by less. So let's make it 30 instead of 50. That's pretty good. So that's going to change pretty fast. Let's add one more thing to tipping mode. I want to have the ability to go faster or slower based on what I do in tipping mode. So let's also, it doesn't matter where you put this. So we're changing the current tone. We're also changing the current tempo by something related to the acceleration. So again, I'm going to use one of these multiply or divide blocks, probably a divide block, with the acceleration from the input menu. You could also copy and paste the one right below it. So let's think about this. If the current tempo, which we start off with at 400, so it's oh, that's interesting. I made it the same. Let's just make these different just to be a little less confusing. So the current tempo starts at 400. I would, if I'm tipped all the way, I would want to speed up to 450 or 500. So again, I'm only changing by a small amount. Well, maybe 30 is the right amount. Let's try it. Let's test this out. So I'm in play mode 0. Play mode 1, I'm beeping. Play mode 2, I've got the light. Play mode 3, and you can tell it's not only changing the tone, but it's also changing the tempo a little bit. So if I want it to go really fast, and then I change it back, yep, so now I'm back in play mode 1, but because I sped it way up, now it's going crazy. So I could always change that again by going back into the play mode and bringing it back down to earth. Okay, so I at least have some control there. Great, so I'm actually satisfied with it. Let's just review it from the beginning to make sure we catch everything. So, all right. In the start menu, I'm setting my initial play mode. I'm setting my basic tempo, which could change later. I'm setting the music tempo, which is what is how the beats are calculated, to the current tempo. That doesn't happen automatically. We have to add this block to make sure it happens. And I set the frequency of the variable called current tone, which I won't use until I get to play mode 3, but that's okay. And then I have the same button controls as last time. Button A lowers our play mode. Button B raises the play mode. Shaking resets to 0. In the forever loop, I have my bar graph of the light level. And then I have this series of if statements. If the play mode is 0, I call play mode 0, which is just resting for 16 beats. You may figure out a simpler way to do that than putting it in 4 times. In play mode 1, I've got this off and on structure. And I'm using it at current tempo, so at the variable, meaning it could change if something changes it. And then I have the light solo mode, else if play mode equals 2, then we use flashlight solo mode, repeat 16 times, play the tone light level times 5 for 1 beat, and then else tipping mode. Tipping mode is repeat 16 times. We're going to change two different variables here. We're changing the tempo by an amount, and we're changing the tone by an amount, and it turns out about the same amount will work fine. And then we play the current tone for 1 beat, which gets repeated 16 times. So I think we have something that you can kind of control, play with a flashlight, play by tipping. And then, of course, to download it, you would hit the download button. Make sure you set up the clips correctly based on the diagram here. And then you could either move it to the device like a flash drive or use the pair device function. Thanks, everybody.